websites look really nice.
When did you first become interested in programming?
For me, it was about middle school. Me and my friends, we were fortunate enough that my father was a computer programmer and their fathers were computer programmers, and so we got to learn some from them. And we would write what's called a text-based RPG. We'd write games that were just text, and so you had to type in commands to play the game and stuff like that. And so we'd try making games like that, and then from there it just snowballed into where I'm at today.
I would say I first became interested in programming in college, actually. Right away, I didn't know what I wanted to do in college, but then once I started doing design, I knew that to be a good designer, that I had to not only be good at color theory and design aesthetics, but to also know programming, because when the way that technology is changing these days, that you pretty much kind of have to know programming in any field of design, basically.
How did you learn to program?
In high school, I took some advanced placement classes that taught programming, and then I actually didn't do programming right away. I went to school to be a police officer, I joined the Army, I did all these other things, and then I decided, well, I remember programming, I remember enjoying it, so I went back to that. And I actually learned from a website called teentreehouse.com. You have to pay for it, but they have classes to teach you how to do web development like I do now.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as Mike. I learned to program basically on my own. I took one class in college at Winona State, but then I took it upon myself to use extra resources like Code Academy, which is a free open source website where anyone can go there and learn how to code, and it's like step-by-step like games and whatnot too, so it's essentially kind of like what you guys will be doing today.
Yeah, I've used Code Academy with some students too, so that's pretty cool. Do you consider your coding ability to be a superpower?
My wife does. She doesn't understand what I do, but it's a little bit like a superpower because it's a way to do things that my brain can't. The computer I can tell it, tell me the answer to this, and I have to tell it in a certain way, but if I tell it in that certain way, it'll give me that answer, where my brain, I'd have to write it all out, and it would take me 20, 30 minutes to figure out, where the computer takes 5 minutes.
Yeah, I would consider coding to be a strong superpower. I mean, think of all the different things you can do with coding. You take letters and numbers, which are super small, and then you can bring them and build stuff on computers and on your tablets, on new things like the Apple Watch, desktop, phone, mobile apps, games. So basically, if you know how to code, you can do like everything.
What is the coolest thing you've been able to use your coding powers on? And I'll add to that too, what are some cool things just in general that you've seen coding able to do,
Sure. For one thing for me is that my wife is an author, and so I was able to make her website. So it's nice for her because if she has any questions about her website, I'm right there and I can help her out. Some other things I've seen, I'm sure you've heard about Facebook and Google and all these other things that have completely changed the world. And everything they do every day is something different and something new that has changed everything in our lives. When we were kids, we didn't even have cell phones, and now the world is just connected through the internet and everything.
The coolest thing that I've used my coding powers on would just be creating and designing websites for friends and family, clients. So being able to take the knowledge that I've learned and develop skill sets, and then take that skill set and help people out. So I would say that's probably the best thing I've used my coding powers on.
How has learning how to program code changed how you look at the world?
One thing that it has helped me is with problem solving. To be a good computer programmer, you have to be a good problem solver. And I remember in high school when I was learning how to program, before that I was actually pretty bad at math. And then I learned how to program and it just clicked and everything about math just made sense to me. And I started to excel at math and do really well. So that's one way it really changed the way I looked at the world.
I would say that, let's see, how has programming changed the world? So it really made me self-aware of how coding is pretty much all around us. I guess before I didn't really know too much about how coding was in our vehicles, in our in the phones, in the games we play, in any equipment that I guess has an operating system. Coding can go a long way. So now I know that there's lines of code in basically everywhere you look. So I would say coding has significantly changed the world. Companies like Google and Apple, like Mike said, they're the forerunners of technology, and they basically paved the way for everyone in the world. And so coding, yeah, it's probably one of the most important things to influence humans, is what I would say.
What is one important thing kids should think about as they learn to program?
The number one thing that I think is important is figuring out what is wrong, because you're never going to write the perfect computer program the first time. Every time I write code, there's something wrong with it. I usually never get a perfect program right away. And so I have to look at my code and say, well, what's wrong? What did I do or what did I miss that's not working here? And sometimes it's not an obvious answer, and it takes me half a day just to figure out what's wrong. But being able to not give up on that and to kind of have the endurance in your brain to keep going to try to figure out what's wrong.
Yeah, Mike basically hit it perfectly. I would say that the most important thing that kids should think about as they learn to program is that you're going to make mistakes, and that you should not get frustrated and give up. You should remain on path and work hard, and you'll eventually figure out the problem. And then once you do figure out the problem, you're going to feel really great about yourself, and then you're going to want to just keep coding and keep programming and keep developing your skills.
Questions from the students? Anybody have a question they want to ask? Go ahead.
What made you do this? What made you, who introduced you to this? Because you can change the world with coding, can't you?
You can. For me, it was my dad. He was a computer programmer, and I believe his dad before him was a computer programmer too. So I was fortunate enough to be born into a family that introduced me to it.
Yeah, same thing. My dad works for Mayo Clinic. He does computer programming for Mayo Clinic. So he kind of, I guess, set the seed and pushed me in the direction of coding. At first I didn't want to do it, but then I came back around and decided that coding would be the correct field for me. So.
Somebody else have a question? Go ahead.
Do you guys have your own website that you make all the games and websites and stuff on?
I don't have a website with games on it, but I make my wife's website for all of her books and everything. And then before I started working here at Trinity Insight, I was doing my own web development company, and so I made a website for that as well, and worked and made a few websites for other people, but I decided that I didn't really like working for just myself, so that's why I stopped doing that and applied at Trinity Insight. I'm very lucky to be there today.
Can you repeat the question again? Sorry, I found myself in time.
So do you guys have a website that you can?
Oh yes, I do have a website. Yeah, it's my first and last name, so lukesanneman.com is my own website, and I put basically other work and websites that I've done on my website. So if you want to see everything that I have created, then you can go to my website and see everything there. Yep.
Somebody else have a question? Anybody else? I have a question. Do you know everything there is to know about coding and programming right now?
Not even close. It's there's so much to know that I personally feel it's almost impossible for any one person to know everything. And that's what's nice about working with a team of people is that Luke knows so much that I don't know, and then the same true is a lot I know that he doesn't know. And because of that, we can come together and really do really great things that we wouldn't be able to do on our own.
Yeah, Mike basically hit it on the head right there that when you're in a team like that, you can play off of each other because there's so many different coding languages to learn. You guys are starting with HTML and CSS, so once you get, that's like the basic framework, but then, like Mike can tell you, you can start learning other languages like JavaScript and jQuery and Ruby, Angular, Python, like all that stuff. So yeah, I don't think there's ever really one person who has mastered coding. It's an ever-developing language, and I think that even if someone did think that they were mastering all the coding languages, that there's someone in their basement right now creating a new coding language. So, I mean, there's always development.
So sometimes you work by yourself and sometimes you work together then on that?
A lot of the time we work together, yep, but
Yeah.
it's by yourself, but then to solve problems, we'll come together as a team, collectively figure out.
And sometimes, like, let's say no one in the office has a solution. What are other places you go that can help you out?
Google.
Yeah, Google's your best
Yeah.
friend. Any resources online, Stack Overflow is any developer's friend. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy how fast you can reach out to strangers on the internet and ask a question, and then someone will have the answer across the world just like that. So the developing community is a big community. So.
Right.
And the nice thing is a lot of the questions have already been asked. So when you Google the question, you'll find someone else already asked that question. And you'll find other people already answer that question as well. So you don't always have to ask a new question. A lot of times you'll find the answers already answered.
Right. Any other questions for right now that anybody can think of? Yep.
I have a question. How did you, besides other websites, how do you get your information?
How do I get the information to put on the website? Well, I guess it depends on who is hiring me or paying me to do the work. So if a company who sells sporting goods, so like basketballs and soccer balls and baseballs and all that stuff, if they're gonna hire me to do a website for them, then I'm gonna do research on what the company is, and what they sell as far as products and their breadth of range. So I become a little mini detective. I do my own research and figure out what I need to do first. So that's what I do. I hunt down my own information first.
Very good. Anything else right now that anybody can think of? Okay.